For 10 years, my hands have known the feel of this steering wheel. The calluses are a map of every tour, every late night. My boss, the Morning Dove, she's a refurbished 60s coach, and she's got her own language. Groans and sighs I've come to know like my own breathing. I know her every sound. In this job, you tell a lot of ghost stories, and you hear your fair share of strange noises in the dark. But there's always been one rule, a story we kept for ourselves. It was passed down from the old timers, the ones who drove these streets when the bus was new. We never, ever pick up hitchhikers at midnight. There's a reason. One night, I wasn't so sure I believed it anymore, so I broke it. This is the story of what happens when you stop for that lone figure on the side of the road, and why some rules are written in something colder than ink. After a decade, the route is just muscle memory. My life, measured in 90-minute loops through the city's darkest parts. The script is baked into me. I could do it in my sleep. On your left, you'll see the old Majestic Theater. Story goes a young actress, Eleanor Vance, took her final bow from the rafters in 1928. They say a single spotlight still turns on by itself, right where she fell. I'd pause there. Let the words hang in the air. Thick as the exhaust, my old bus would cough into the night. The reactions are always the same. You see them in the big rearview mirror. Nervous laughs from the back, a teenager rolling his eyes, a few wide-eyed believers. They pay their $35 for a safe scare, a story to tell their friends back home. They flirt with the abyss from behind the safety of glass and steel. They don't understand that the veil between their world and the one I talk about, it's thinner than they think. To them, it's entertainment. To me, it was just another Tuesday. This city is its own character. An old river city built on tragedy. Plagues, fires, the kind of misery that stains the ground. The route I drive traces those scars. The governor's palace, the old county hospital that was a morgue during the yellow fever epidemic. I don't have to make much up. The truth is grim enough. This one night, the air was heavy, threatening a rain that never came. Fog clung to the streets, muffling the sounds and making the streetlights look hazy, distant. Perfect weather for a tour. The atmosphere does half the work for you. 22 people on the bus. A bachelorette party, an older couple holding hands, a family whose son seemed more interested in his phone. The other drivers and I, we have our rituals. Superstitions. Never start a tour with the front seat empty. Always leave a coin at the gates of Blackwood Cemetery when you're done for the night. A kind of payment. But the big one, the sacred one, was about hitchhikers. Especially on the last tour of the evening, the midnight route. It's not in any company handbook. It's folklore, passed down from one driver to the next. The old-timers started it. They'd talk about a driver named Charlie McManus back in the 70s. Good man, they said, but soft-hearted. Saw a woman on the side of the road in a storm, out by the old railroad crossing where a train derailed in '52. He stopped for her. When he got to the end of his route, the bus was empty. All he found was a scarf on the seat, the address she gave him. The family there told him their daughter died on that train. 20 years before, Charlie quit driving. He was dead within a year. We all knew the story. We treated it with a kind of professional respect. You don't mess with things you don't understand. The stories we told were for the passengers. The ones we kept for ourselves were the ones that kept us safe. I guided the bus through the last few stops. The Menger Hotel, where they say there are over 30 spirits, including a chambermaid named Sally White. I delivered my lines. The bachelorette party shrieked. The kid on his phone actually looked up. The final stop was the San Fernando Cathedral, the oldest church in Texas. They say the Alamo defenders are buried in the walls, that you can sometimes see monks pacing the grounds. I idled the bus and gave my closing lines. Take the stories with you, but leave the spirits behind. They have their own paths to walk, and we have ours. A little poetry to send them back to their normal, ghost-free lives. I drove them back to the depot. The bus was quieter now. They got off with nervous thank yous and disappeared into the fog. All except one, the teenage boy, the skeptic. "Hey," he said, "that stuff about the theater, Eleanor Vance, is it real?" I gave him the standard answer, a small smile. "The stories are real," he nodded, looking out into the night. "It's just, when you were talking, I looked it up. The date she died, it's tonight." A cold feeling settled in my chest. Not a dramatic chill, just a quiet, heavy coldness. I'd told that story 1,000 times. I'd never known the exact date. September 3rd. "Huh," I said. "What do you know?" He shrugged and ran to catch up with his family, leaving me alone in the huge, empty bus. The engine rumbled under my feet. The coincidence was unsettling. A crack in the wall between the job and whatever was behind it. I shook it off. Time to go home. The route to the main depot took me down the old river road, deserted at this hour. The quickest way, but also the loneliest. The clock on the dash glowed. 11:54 p.m. The bus felt huge and empty around me. After you drop off a load of people, the silence is always what hits you first. It's shocking. Just the sound of the tires on the wet road, the steady thump of the wipers against the mist. That's when your mind starts to work. The kid's comment was still sitting there. Eleanor Vance. September 3rd, a stupid coincidence. That's what I told myself. Nothing more. 11:57 p.m. I've always felt like cities breathe differently at night. In the daylight, it's all human noise. But late at night, in that space between one day and the next, something else takes over. The stories I tell for a living feel closer, more real. That's when I saw it. Up ahead, where the road curved. A figure on the shoulder, just a shape in the fog. My first thought was it was a trick of the light. But as the bus chewed up the road, the shape became a person. Someone hitchhiking. My whole body went stiff. Every instinct I had, built up over 10 years, screamed one word. No. The rule. Charlie McManus. The empty seat. You just keep driving. Pretend you don't see it. That's what you do. My foot stayed on the accelerator. I could see her more clearly now. A woman, it looked like, wearing a light-colored dress that seemed wrong for the damp chill of the night. But it was her posture that got me. She wasn't waving a thumb out. She was just standing there. Shoulders slumped, head bowed. There was an exhaustion to her, a stillness that was more powerful than any frantic wave. 11:59 p.m. My heart was hammering. My logical mind was fighting this sudden, strange pull. It wasn't pity. It was a sense of obligation. It felt less like I was making a choice, and more like I was being told to stop. I told myself it was just a person. Car broke down. Phone died. A real person who needed help. My job is driving a bus. The bus is empty. Leaving her out here on this road, it felt wrong. The face of Charlie McManus flashed in my mind. The old-timer said he was soft-hearted. Maybe I was too. A distant church bell started to chime. The first stroke of midnight. My foot moved to the brake. The decision was made. The bus sighed to a halt, the air brakes hissing into the quiet. I pulled the lever for the doors. They groaned open, cutting a slice into the foggy night. She lifted her head, and I saw her face. Pale, almost glowing in the light from the bus. Her eyes were dark and vast. They seemed to pull the light in. She didn't speak. She just stepped onto the bus. As she passed, a wave of cold hit me. Not the damp night air, but a deep, penetrating cold that sank right into my bones. And a smell. Wet soil, decaying leaves, and something metallic like old pennies. She walked right past me, her feet making no sound on the floor. All the way to the very back, to the long bench seat. She sat in the center, perfectly still, and turned to look out the window at the darkness. I just sat there, my hand on the door lever. No thank you. No destination. Just this silent, cold presence in the back of my bus. The last chime of the midnight bell faded. "Ma'am?" I called out, my voice sounding small. "Where are you headed?" No response. I should have told her to get off right then, but I felt paralyzed. My bus, my familiar morning dove, suddenly felt like it wasn't mine anymore. With a shaky hand, I closed the doors. The hydraulics sealed us in together. I put the bus in gear, a feeling of dread settling in my stomach like a stone. I had broken the rule. And as the bus moved back into the fog, I had the sickening feeling that I hadn't just picked up a passenger. I had let something in. The silence on the bus was heavy, tense. Just the hum of the engine and the relentless rhythm of the wipers. I kept my eyes on the road, but my attention was stretched thin, pulled to the back of the bus. I could feel her there. I glanced in the big rearview mirror. I could just see her silhouette, unmoving. I reached for the radio, just needing a normal sound, a voice, some music. It crackled, but only with static. A harsh, angry hiss. I twisted the dial. More static. Then, for a second, a voice broke through. A woman's voice, whispering a word I couldn't understand. Then it was gone, swallowed by the noise. I turned the radio off. The silence that came back was worse. That's when the lights began to flicker. The overhead cabin lights sputtered. Once, twice, then for 3 long seconds, the bus went completely dark. My heart jumped. The only light was the faint red glow from the dash. Then, with a buzz, the lights came back. "Electrical fault," I muttered, but the words felt hollow. "This bus is old, but I know her. The wiring is solid. In 10 years, the lights have never done that." I looked in the mirror again. She hadn't moved. She hadn't even flinched. The cold started to creep in then. The heaters were on, but the air was growing frigid. I could see my own breath. I cranked the heat, the fans roaring, but it made no difference. The temperature just kept dropping. It felt like it was coming from the back of the bus. Then I saw the frost. On the inside of the windows, delicate, feathery patterns of ice, starting from the back and crawling their way forward. It was impossible. It had to be 40 degrees outside. My eyes went to the mirror again. And this time, my blood went cold. In the reflection of the window beside her, I saw another face. A man, pale and gaunt, with a dark mustache and a bowler hat. I knew him. Dr. Ephraim Blackwood, the founder of the cemetery from my story. The man who supposedly went mad and died wandering his own graveyard. I blinked hard, and he was gone. Just the reflection of the trees. A trick of the light. It had to be. But then, in the window behind my seat, another face appeared. Eleanor Vance, the actress. Her face was a mask of shock, her mouth open in a silent scream. The kid was right. It was her night, and she was on my bus. This wasn't in my head. The stories I told every night were manifesting. The woman in the back, she was a key. She had unlocked something, and they were coming aboard. A faint sound started. A soft, rhythmic creaking. The emergency hatch on the roof, right above the aisle, was trembling. A single dark drop of water fell from it, hitting the floor with a soft plink. Then another. The water was almost black, and it smelled of the river, of rot and decay. My hands were sweating on the wheel. I had to get her off the bus, but we were miles from anywhere. The bus began to slow down. I hadn't touched the brake. My foot was hovering over the pedal. The Morning Dove was stopping on its own. I jammed the accelerator. Nothing. It was like pushing against stone. I wasn't driving anymore. The bus took a sharp right turn that I didn't make. We were heading back into the historic district, back onto my tour route, but the streets were empty. The buildings looked wrong, older, grimy. The streetlights were dim, yellow gas lamps. It was like we had driven through the fog and come out in a different century. The bus rumbled over cobblestones and stopped, right in front of the majestic theater. But it wasn't the restored landmark I knew. It was dark, boarded up with a faded, condemned sign. A sound from the back, a soft sob. I looked in the mirror. The woman was looking forward now, at the empty seats. The sob came again, but it wasn't from her. It was from a seat halfway down the aisle. The air in that spot shimmered, and a shape began to form. A young woman in a tattered, sequined dress. Eleanor Vance. She was translucent, weeping into her hands. Then, from another seat, a cough. A man in the rough clothes of a dockworker appeared, pale and sweaty. A yellow fever victim. One by one, the seats began to fill. The cast for my nightly monologue. A soldier in a tattered gray uniform. A woman in a Victorian gown, her face furious. They were here, passengers. They ignored me. Their attention was fixed on the silent woman in the back. She sat among them like a queen on a throne of sorrow. She was their anchor. She was the reason they were here. I was trapped on a charter bus to hell with a full manifest of the damned. The cold was a physical pain now, and the dripping from the ceiling was getting faster, the dark puddle snaking its way down the aisle toward me. The air in the bus was heavy with 1,000 silent griefs. It was becoming unbearable. My mind felt like it was fraying. There's no protocol for this, no training for a bus full of actual ghosts. But a basic instinct finally broke through the paralysis. Fight or flight. And since the bus wasn't mine to fly anymore, I had to fight. I unbuckled my seatbelt. The click sounded like a gunshot. I stood up, my legs shaking from the cold. The spirits in the seats flickered as I moved, but their focus stayed on the woman in the back. The source. I started down the aisle, my shoes splashing in the shallow, icy water on the floor. The smell of damp earth was overpowering. As I walked, whispers curled around me, fragments of my own script. Never saw him again. The fire started, died in my arms. They weren't just lines from a story anymore. They were real and pushed through the cold, my eyes locked on her. Up close, I could see her better. Her dress was simple, faded cotton, spattered with mud. Her hair was matted with leaves. Her hands, folded in her lap, were raw and scraped. I stood in front of her. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice cracking. "What do you want?" She lifted her head and looked at me. Her eyes were voids. When she spoke, it wasn't one voice. It was 100 voices at once. All the spirits on the bus, layered together. It was the sound of a graveyard trying to speak. "We want to go home." The sound vibrated through the floorboards, right into my bones. Home? Where is home? The place we were promised. The end of the road, but the road never ends. She was a collector, a spectral shepherd for the lost souls tethered to the places they died, and she needed a living ferryman to carry them. By inviting her in at midnight, I had accepted the job. "You have to let them go," I pleaded. "You have to let me go." The chorus of voices came again, with a new bitterness. "Why? You tell our stories. You make your living from our pain. You call to us every night. Now you will serve us." And it hit me then. This wasn't random. She had chosen me. For 10 years, I'd been driving these streets, saying their names, keeping their stories alive. I had been feeding their legends, anchoring them to this world with my words. And tonight, the collector had come to claim her due. The bus lurched into motion again, driving itself deeper into the phantom city. It took us to the places from my tour, and with each stop, the misery intensified, the spirits growing more solid. I was losing. The cold was seeping into my heart. I looked at the woman, this weary, soil-stained ghost, and saw a prisoner. She was as trapped as they were. I couldn't fight a legion of spirits, but I had one thing they didn't. I knew their stories. Not just the gory details for the tour, but the human ones. You're one of them, aren't you? I said. You died out here too. The chorus went silent. Her own voice, a whisper like dry leaves, answered. Asterisk, I was the first. And I knew. A fragment of a story I'd heard once from an old driver. A tale he'd dismissed as nonsense. A woman named Elspeth, who walked to the city in a blizzard to get a doctor for her sick child. They found her in the spring. Your name is Elspeth, I said softly. The name felt like a key turning in a lock. The air in the bus changed. Her eyes widened. Surprise. Your son, I went on, pulling details from memory, maybe inventing them. I don't know. I was just telling a story. But this time, it wasn't for entertainment. It was for survival. His name was Thomas. He survived. The doctor got there the next day. Thomas lived. He grew up. He had his own family. I was trying to give her what she never got, an ending. As I spoke, the intense cold began to fade. The ghostly forms of the others started to thin. You did it, Elspeth, I said, my voice steadier. You saved him. Your journey wasn't for nothing. You can rest. All of you can rest. The chorus of voices was gone. It was just her. She looked at her raw hands, then at me. A single clear tear cut a path through the dirt on her cheek. He lived, she whispered. Her own voice, clear, human. He lived, I said. She closed her eyes. A faint smile touched her lips, and she began to dissolve. Not into smoke, but into soft, golden motes of light that washed over the other spirits. As it touched them, they too began to dissolve, their faces finally at peace. One by one, my passengers checked out. Within seconds, I was alone. The bus was empty. The cold was gone. The dark puddle on the floor was gone. The bus shuddered, and the engine cut out. The phantom city flickered and vanished. I was back on the foggy river road, parked on the shoulder, the red lights of the dashboard blinking in the sudden, absolute silence. I sat there for a long time. The silence in the empty bus was deafening. My hands were shaking. I turned the key. The Mourning Dove's engine roared back to life, steady and familiar. I looked in the rearview mirror. Just empty seats. The only thing left was the faint smell of damp earth and a cold I could feel deep in my bones. I don't think that will ever go away. I drove back to the depot. The city looked different. The shadows in the alleys seemed deeper. It was like a filter had been removed from my eyes, and I could see the layers of the past everywhere. I still drive the ghost tour. I put on the uniform. I get in the seat. I recite the script, but the words feel different now. They aren't just stories. They're introductions. When I say the name Eleanor Vance, I can almost feel a chill in the air. The line between being a performer and being a witness, it's gone. This city isn't just my job anymore. It's a living graveyard, and I feel like one of its caretakers. I never drive the river road after dark anymore, and I make sure I'm home long before midnight. There's a reason for the rule. I know that now. Some legends aren't just stories you tell in the dark. They're waiting patiently on the side of a lonely road for someone foolish or soft-hearted enough to stop. They're waiting for a ride. The stories I tell on my tour feel more real than ever. It makes me wonder about the stories you all carry with you, the things you've seen that you can't quite explain away. If you've ever had an encounter like that, a brush with something on the other side, share it in the comments. I read all of them. It helps to know I'm not the only one. If you want to hear more stories from the dark corners of the world, be sure to subscribe. You never know what might be waiting for you in the next tale.